Tarn, welcome to Med-Tech Expo. You've spoken a lot about changing how we look at regulations, and you've given a conference talk here today about that topic. What are the first steps towards no longer viewing compliance as a roadblock, but more as a competitive strategy?
I think it's about how we approach regulations. So rather than thinking of them as just another thing in your day, or even that they have no value and they're a tick box exercise, I think it's all about how you can use them to, one, prove that your product is safe and it's compliant and build that trust with your customers, but secondly, to take it as an opportunity to improve your processes, improve the way you move data across your organisations, and improve the way your teams coordinate and speak to each other, because a lot of the data that the reg team need is needed across the business, so it's got double the value.
What is the biggest myth that medtech companies are still believing about working with regulators?
The biggest myth, that regulations are a waste of time. I would say that I still hear that all the time, and that they're just there as a tick box exercise and to keep regulators in a job. I would say absolutely not. For every single regulation, whether you agree with it or not, there is justification behind it, and I think that the premise is all about keeping patients safe at the end of the day. Without compliance, without the regulators, without that scrutiny, I think we'd be in a little bit of trouble.
What are the biggest upcoming regulatory changes, and how can people be prepared to make the most of it?
Yeah, I'm going to say the word of the moment, but it's AI. I think there's so much that's coming with AI, and I think it will change over the next 12, 18 months. Who knows, 3 to 5 years, and who knows, 10, 20 years. I think it will change the game when it comes to not only the way in which we work, the way in which products are developed and sold, but also in terms of how the regulators keep up with the up and coming new pieces of AI technology that are coming out. So I think we as people in industry need to keep our foot on the pulse. We need to be ensuring that we're signed up to the right regulatory bodies, and that if we're moving into AI, we're always thinking about what could be coming when it comes to regulation.
Now, we're asking a lot of people on the show floor about the current state of medtech in the UK. When you look at the UK medtech landscape today, how are the smartest companies leveraging the strict regulatory frameworks as a springboard to innovate faster rather than treating them as a hurdle?
I think it all comes down to how you build the regulatory requirements into your process. So rather than having your regulatory team come right at the end of your R&D process, you're embedding them from the start. So you'll have a great idea for a new product, you'll go away and you'll source the ingredients or the components for that product. And generally what happens with the slower moving organisations is that they bring regulatory, and right at the end they find something and they have to go right back to the drawing board. The ones that have the best success, the ones that are moving quickest, are the ones that bring regulatory in right at that inflection point. And I would say, if I have one piece of advice, it would be bring regulatory in as soon as you can.
Are there any success stories that you can share from your experience of companies succeeding because they nailed their regulatory strategy?
Yeah, 100%. So I worked with a company who was looking at how to improve their supplier engagement. So particularly with medical technology, but also across pharmaceuticals and other life sciences companies, the data that you are requesting from your suppliers has a direct impact on your product, and vice versa, the data that you've got on your product impacts your customers. So what we did was we worked with them to implement an internal system, including a portal, which allowed the customer in this instance to reach out to their suppliers at the click of a button. You didn't have to wait for them to receive a questionnaire via post and then fax it back, or if you've got a question, ring them up and wait for them to be free. You can do it all within a portal. And what that meant was that further down the chain, where my customer's customer had a question, they were able to respond really quickly, and it gave them a really clear competitive advantage because they were able to get ahead of their competitors by supplying data that their customers needed in order to become compliant themselves and therefore sell more product. So that intersection of digital technology, of process and governance, and of regulations, I think gives you a real good advantage when it comes to how best to work with your customers.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for your time.
Amazing.
And good luck for the rest of the show.
And thank you for a great show. Thanks you.